Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Marites Macapagal, and I will be your instructor for today's virtual training. I am from the MTA Organizational Design and Development, specifically in the computer training. So today we're going to have the first part of Excel pivot table. Let us start. Now, let's start with our participants and learning objective. For this class, participants will be able to prepare a data for analysis. We're going to create a pivot table from a local data source, multiple sources, and of course, external source, meaning if I'm getting some data or using a data from Access that you would like to put in or bring in to Excel. So what is really a pivot table? In our slide right now, I have a very brief and detailed definition of what a pivot table is. So a pivot table is an interactive way to quickly summarize large amounts of data. You could use a pivot table to analyze numerical data in detail. It can group items into categories, count the number of items in each category, and can sum the items value. Now, pivot chart complements a pivot table by adding visualization to the summary data in pivot table. I will go over pivot chart next week once we do the part 2 of this pivot table. So the pivot chart will allow you to easily see comparison, pattern, and trend. Both the pivot table and the pivot chart enables you to make an informed decision about the critical data, that you have. So let me just go over this on the next slide. By the way, this slide, I'm going to email it to all of you once the uh, WebEx generate the attendance for this class. So a pivot table is specially designated for the following. It is for querying large amount of data in many user-friendly ways, subtotaling and aggregating numeric data, summarizing data by categories and subcategories, and create custom calculations and formulas, expanding, collapsing, levels of data to focus your result and drilling down to details from the summary data for areas of interest to you. It is also designed for moving rows to columns or column to rows that make it interactive, or that's why it's called pivoting, to see different summaries of the source data, which I'm going to show you later on. And of course, it is also designed for filtering, sorting, grouping, and conditionally formatting the most useful and interesting subset of data, enabling you to focus on just the information you want. And finally, it is designed for presenting concise, attractive, and annotated online or printed reports. Now, there are guidelines to prepare your data. So guidelines to prepare data to be able to optimize your pivot table result. And what are they? First, your data shouldn't have any empty rows or column. Okay. It must have only a single row heading. There is no filter applied. There are no subtotals. There are not duplicate data entries, and data are formatted based on data type. Okay. Okay, I see some people have some. Okay, great. Okay, so let me just minimize this and let us now. I have an Excel file that I have here that I would like to show to all of you. Okay, so again, remember we said to prepare your data. Normally, you should have only a single row heading. Take a look at this report. This is a report that had been generated a long time ago. Take a look. It was run in 2020. This is a sample. Don't worry. The datas here had been reshuffled just to be able to show you an actual report. But of course, we reshuffled all the information. So at least I just wanted to make sure that you could relate on how we could actually use pivot table in a report like this. Some of you, might not be all, uses PeopleSoft to generate a report, right? And once you download the report, this is basically how it looks. You have a long list of information on top. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to remove that. But before you do that, I have exercise. Allow me to resave this just in case, something goes wrong. Okay. Okay, so I have rename it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the headings on top. There you go. And right click and delete. So now I only have the single row right there for your headings. Then if I press Control N to go all the way to the end, you notice down at the bottom, I have grand totals. It's also wise to get rid of this. Okay, so I'm just going to select them and simply get rid of it. Done. So I know everything's okay. Control Home to go back to the top of my screen, right? So again, this data had been generated coming from PeopleSoft, and we are removing all the totals. And I took also the data on top, which I don't need right now because this is what's important, the column heading for our information. So we were able to follow the first guideline, or one of the guidelines, which is it must have only a single row heading. Next, another thing that you might want to check is there should be no blank rows or columns or even blank cells. Okay, so if you click your mouse within the list, right, and to find blank cells, all you have to do in under the home ribbon, under the editing group, if you look at the find and select option, if you click on the drop down arrow and go to special, and if you click on blanks, okay, allow Excel to look for the blanks cells for you. So again, I click on blanks and I simply click OK. Keep it a few seconds, depending on how fast yours. Now take a look down at the bottom on N695. It is an empty cell, right? Right now, it has numerical values in it. So I would simply type NA. Okay. And once I have typed NA, simply press Control Enter to populate the other cells that have, Control Enter to be able to populate all the cells that are empty if there's any other cells that are empty. So look at that. If I scroll, take a look at the other cells. That's another one right there that are actually empty. See that? So it will actually do that. Again, what did I do? After putting NA, I simply hit Control Enter to populate, right? NA to all of those cells that are actually empty. So we were able to do everything. Press Control Home again to go to the top of the screen. So there are no subtotals. Right now, there is, of course, no empty rows or columns. And it looks like all of our data are formatted accordingly. Okay, so this is employee ID, and this is a text. These are text. So those are what you refer to as the format based on data type. So those are the things that we actually should check. And allow me to resave this with all the changes I have. So how do we create a pivot table? So first step is you have to select the cell you want to create a pivot table from. So just simply click anywhere within your list. So right now, I just simply click anywhere within my list as long as I am within my list, right? And then I am going to click on the insert ribbon. In the insert ribbon, you have the first group right here, which is called tables. In the tables, you see pivot tables all the way on the left. So all you have to do is click on pivot tables. And once you click on it, there will be another dialog box that will open up. And in here, it says select the table or range. Notice because there is no, that's the reason why there should be no rows or empty column is to make sure that it will automatically select the entire range, the complete range. Because if there is a blank row, it will stop on that row and will not consider anything after the blank row. So because we are sure that there's no empty rows or column, we know that the entire list of information had been successfully selected. Okay, so once you have done that, okay, now choose where you want the pivot table to be placed is the second question. By default, the radio button, the black dot, is on new worksheet. Okay, it's always advisable to use the default, which is a new worksheet, right? To place a pivot table in a new worksheet. Your other option is an existing worksheet. If you have prepared another worksheet where you would like to position it, but you have to indicate which worksheet is it. Otherwise, you could simply click on OK. Okay, so now you started the steps in creating a pivot table. Now we go to the step in building your pivot table. Okay, so first is you have to add fields to your pivot table. This is the pivot table on the extreme left, as you could see. Okay, and on the right side, right here, okay, is actually the list of the field names. To add a field to your pivot table, you have to select the field name checkbox in a pivot table field. Look at this. You see all the listings of the different fields. These are the different column headings that you have on the original listings right there. And there's a checkbox that you could actually see. Selected fields are added to their default area. Okay. If you select the fields, again, I will repeat, Excel will add it to their default area. What are the default area? Non-numeric fields are added to the row. Date and time hierarchies are added to the column. Those are the default location. And numeric fields are added to the values. So that's what Excel actually do if you simply click on the checkbox. Now, if you prefer to select or position a field to an exact location, you could drag and drop it. Okay, so that's how you could move the field from one area to another. You have to drag the field to the target area. Now, before we even start this, pivot table task pane, this is how you call it, this area in here. The task pane will be used to construct the pivot table and execute data tasks. Take a look. In here, you see next to it is what you call the tools, right? There's a tools drop down arrow. If you click on it, this will allow you to switch or change the layout, okay, of your field listing. So right now, this is the field listing column. A lot of times, this is what you get, the first one on the list. Okay, so again, normally it is this way. You have the list on top and you have the areas at the bottom. Okay, but again, personally, you could switch it to the different layout you prefer. I prefer this so I could see the complete list and I could see my area of destination. So that's where you could actually do it. Now take a look at here. You have filters. Filters are area field shown to the top level report as filter criteria for pivot tables. Rows, of course, are non-numeric fields, as I've indicated. Columns normally are some of those time and date hierarchies are actually added in the column, and values, summarized numeric values, can be found under the values. Okay, so what are we going to do now? In creating a pivot table, we actually try to generate a report that will answer some of your questions based on a big amount of information. If you notice, I'm going to go back to this. You see how much information you have. You don't want all of this. So you would like to actually create a report based on the condition you have in mind or answer certain conditions you have in mind. So for instance, you would like to structure a pivot table to answer the question, how many employees from each business unit have completed the mandated training? So these are mandated training report. So take a look. So in here are my information. So I wanted to know how many, right, employees from each business unit have completed mandated report. So to be able to answer this question, I will use the employee ID as a way to count, right, how many employees. So I will drag this right there to the values. There you go. And right now it gave me 13,483 count of employee IDs, right? And it says per business unit. So my business unit is rate pay business unit. I'm going to drag this to the row area. So these are the business unit. Take a look on my report. So now it actually, from that grand total of the count of 13,483, it was broken into the different business unit. Now each row in the pivot table summarizes the count per business unit. These are the business unit and these are the count, you know, under that one. You could actually expand. Let's say, yes, these are the business unit, but what department? So if you have a department, I could even drag this below row area, and that will now give you the different department. Okay, so that's how it actually works. You could see, you know, how that 81 number of people or number of employees are broken into what department. You see that? Now notice, you see that minus sign in here? I'm just going to jump and talk about this. You see, in your, once we create the pivot table, there is what you call the pivot table analyze contextual ribbon. And there is also a design. Okay, so let me go back to the pivot table analyze. So in here, I have my business unit. You notice I have the minus sign. This is corresponding to the collapse field option. If I click on the collapse field option, all of them will be collapsed. If I click on the plus sign, it will expand. I could do it individually. If I just wanted to collapse this, all I have to do is click on the minus and it will collapse it, and the rest are still expanded. So that's how you could actually make your report interactive if you just wanted to focus on a particular area. Again, I could expand, I could collapse all of them. I could do them individually if I just wanted, for instance, to look at MTA headquarter, I expand and I see here MTA headquarter. If I just wanted to see MUBSTOA, I have here and I've selected this MUBSTOA. Okay, so this is just an example. Now, then you have another question in mind. Are all of these people active employees? So you need to display the status, whether they're active or not. So if you look at employee status right there, right, I could actually probably put it in the columns. There you go. So it would say all of them, right, 81 are the active ones. Out of the 93, okay, or out of the 95, 93 are active, one retired, one terminated. You see? So it actually gives you the breakdown. Now, if you do not want to be able, this is quite too busy, you could actually put, okay, what you call employee status in the filter. Take a look. As I drag it to the filter, that makes it interactive, right? Now, if I click now, you now see the filtering options right there. If I click on the drop down arrow of that filtered option, I could say select multiple items. I will click on all, and I just wanted to see how many really are active. And that's the status. Okay. Out of the original total of 13,465, only 13,421 are active. And if you wanted to see now, instead of the active, I wanted to see how many are retired and have been terminated or suspended. I click OK, and you have 9 of them. See that? That is filtering. Okay. Again, I could get them all back. Click on all, click on OK, and I see the entire list once again. Now, if I wanted to remove a particular field, okay, for my pivot table, for instance, I don't really need this. So there are multiple ways of removing, right, those options. How do I remove a field? First, okay, you could change, and of course, you could actually move it by, if you click on the drop down arrow, you notice there's a remove field option. Okay, so you could remove it by using that. Another way of doing it is by dragging it. Oh, sorry. Okay, by dragging it. So you simply click on it and drag it out. Okay, so drag it out. That's how. Now, if I put back, I wanted to put back, you could always put it back then later on. And if you wanted to put it back again, where my employee status in my column, it is back to the column. You could also move fields around. For instance, okay, I could put the business unit, okay, see that pay business unit into my column, and my status in my row, and my department I'm going to remove. See that? That this is the different look. Okay, so I have my status, and I do have my pay business unit on my column. So these are the different business unit, and I still have the count of the employee ID. Totally different look, but the same report, depending on how you would like to project your report. And that makes it very interactive. Okay. Um, Now, also, I just wanted to go back here before I move on. There's another way of creating a pivot table. When you're in rush and you want to get some idea, if you are in your original list and if you go to insert, there's what you call recommended pivot tables. If you click on it, there are some recommended pivot tables. Take a look. This is similar to what we have right now. So you have sum of hours by employee, you have sum of the hours by pay business unit, by the union, count of employees, sum of the hours, count of employee ID by employee status. This is similar to what we have. So if I like this, or this is the pay business unit, one or the other, I click OK, and you are able to generate similar to what we have here a while ago, but the same original format that we have. So you could also use the recommended pivot table. If you don't have time to think and design it, you could try using it and then just simply customize it. So far, so good. Okay. Now, let me go to the next topic, which is creating a pivot table coming from multiple local data source. Now that you know how to create a pivot table from a single table, or range of cell from a local data source, sometimes you have a data in multiple spreadsheets. So I'm going to, let me just save this. And I'm just going to switch this. I'm going to close this, Control W. And there's another file that I have, and it's called multiple tables. There you go. So sometimes you have data in multiple spreadsheets. Take a look in this workbook. I have multiple worksheets where I have names, attendance, and classes. Okay, these are our old record. Again, informations had been reshuffled. So this is not an actual one, but similar to what we used to keep. So you could use what you call Excel 2016 data model. Data model is used to combine or join data from multiple tables. So these are three separate tables, but you would like to join them together. So these will enable you to build a relational data source in a workbook. So you think, oh, joining or doing those are only in Access database. That's also possible in Excel. You could add data to the data model when you insert the pivot table. So once again, what is really a data model? Now, Microsoft have actually given us a little idea or some information about what is a data model. So Microsoft, according to Microsoft, a data model allows you to integrate data from multiple tables, effectively building a relational data source inside an Excel workbook. Now, within Excel, data models are used transparently, providing a tabular data used in pivot tables and pivot chart. So let me just show you by example so it will actually make it a lot clearer. So again, I have three tables in here. I'm not sure if you are familiar in converting a list into a table because it makes more sense to convert the list into a table so you could just pull out the name when you are actually combining them later on. So for those of you who have attended my Excel intermediate class, this is one of the topic I have taught. So let me just show you, for those of you who have not tried converting a list to a table, this is how you do it. Simply click, I am on the names worksheet. Simply click anywhere within the list. And in the insert ribbon, you see the up under the table groups, you see tables, correct? Simply click on it. You see create table dialog box and it automatically selected the entire list. And then look at the option, my table has header. These are the headers. All you have to do is click OK. And now you were able to create and converted the list into a table. And you now have a contextual ribbon called table design. In the table name on the left side, it is by default called table 1, but I'm going to call it with a worksheet name given, which is names, so that it is easier to recall. Next, I go to attendance. To convert this, another way of converting a list to a table is using the keyboard shortcut Control and the letter T. By pressing Control T, you are going to get the create table dialog box. And again, my table has header. That's the header. Simply click OK. You get again the table design contextual ribbon indicating that you were able to create a table. Now we have table number 2 and let's call it attendance. Okay, make sure the spelling is correct. And finally, classes. There you go. And this is a weird way. You would say, oh, I didn't know you could create a table just like that. If you click on home and you go to the styles right there, and if you click on the drop down arrow on your styles, okay, on the format as table styles, brother, and I'm just going to select this, and there you go. The table has headers. Click OK. I was able to generate the third table, and let's call this classes. So now we have 3 tables right there. Table names, classes, attendance. Okay, so I have them. Names, attendance, and classes. There you go. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the first one. After actually doing that, right? You can now add those tables in your data model and create a pivot table. So how do we be able to do that? So first, again, click anywhere within, right? I am here. So you're going to go to insert and click on pivot table. Now you have names as the first range, okay? Instead of having the range from A1 down to whatever, it gives you the actual name of that entire listing or entire table. And you wanted to have to create it using a new worksheet. But then what you're going to do now is in choose, right? In choose where you want to analyze your multiple, choose whether you want to analyze multiple tables, which we would like to analyze names, attendance, and classes. So you will click on the option or the text checkbox before add this data to the data model. Okay, so simply click OK. The pivot table is going to be inserted in a worksheet right there. There's a new worksheet. Now look at your pivot listing. There is now a new tab called All. And when you click on All, you have all the different fields in each table. See that? So notice all the table names are listed. Okay. And I have expanded it so that you could actually see it. These are separate tables. Keep in mind, names is a separate table from attendance, from classes. So what do we have to do? We have to set up a relationship between the tables, okay, to be able to combine the information. So a relationship must be established within the existing data model and to be able to incorporate it into the pivot table. To create the relationship, one of the table must have a column of unique and non-repeated values. So to do that, what we do, one way of doing it is you go to data right there, and on the data tools, do you see relationship? You simply click on relationship, and then the manage relationship dialog box opens up. All you have to do is click on new, okay, and click on the tables. And there you go. I will pull out the table names and select the field name employee ID. You see employee ID is in the names. And if I would like to have build a relationship between names and attendance, I see employee ID is also in the attendance. So that's a common field. So I could select attendance and build a related column primary, which is also employee ID. So that's what it is. And simply click on OK. So that's the first relationship. Let's create another one between attendance and classes. What is common between them? Class ID. Okay. I think that's what you have right there. Classes, class ID. So I would say I will build from attendance, and I have class ID, and between classes, table classes, and it is what's common between them is class ID. So that's how you could build the relationship. Once those are built, all you have to do is simply close this. Okay. Now again, let us structure our pivot table to answer the question, how many employees attended training? Because remember, this is a training. We have names of people, attendance, and classes. So we wanted to know. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use from the attendance, I will use the data entry to the value area. Okay. So it gave me a lot that I don't think that's the actual one, but right now it says sum. So it's not counting, it is getting the total. So I will click on here to just do the count. So I will click on the drop down arrow and you see the value setting options. Click on the value setting options and replace it instead of sum, utilize count of the data entry to have a realistic number or count. So simply click OK, and now it gave me the actual count. 4,923 is the total, right? With all the information that we have. Because I don't think I have almost a million, no. It's just a 4,923. Now you could actually be more in detail again. So you are going from the class table. There's my class table. We will select the class name and I will drag this to my row area. So these are the classes and these are the number of people for each class. These are old, as you could see, 2003. That's why these are old data that we have. Okay. You could, if you wanted to know who are the people who attended those classes, right? From the name table right there, I have the email address of the people instead of using their their names. So I could actually drag this, okay, and put it, let's say, under the class name. So these are the people for each class. So if you wanted it to really be in detail. So let me save this file, save as, and call it as my multiple table to save the changes in here. And that shows you how it actually works. Now, so we don't need to fill empty cells. Uh, no, because it's on those cases, if you're going to examine, it looks like it's an empty cells. Michael, very good question. Because some of my classes are not really classes, they are workshops. These are the name of the classes, but these are workshop and they have class topics. So these are not actually relevant to have to populate this. Okay, so that's how it works. Those are two different category, class names and workshop. Under this is like a sub uh, level of entry of information, and that looks like this is empty, but it's okay. You could have, if you wanted to populate it with 0, that's also okay, or NA, that's also okay. But at this point, because this is really not needed information for the class name. Okay, so let me just save this and let me close this because that will give me enough information to be able to work on the next topic. The last topic that we have right now is to be able to bring in data coming from Access, right? When you have data that is stored outside of Excel, in most cases here at Transit, some of you uses what you call Microsoft Access or Microsoft SQL Server database. Okay, so you could connect this external source to create a pivot table and that you could do the summarization and analysis in Excel instead of doing it in Access. Okay, so once again, if I have an empty worksheet right here in the insert ribbon, right, in the pivot table right there, and there's an option right there. So you could actually click on the pivot table once again, but look here. It says in here, choose the data, right? 1 second. Oh, sorry. Okay, pivot table. I thought I click on it. External data source. There you go. Because you are getting to get it from the data source. So choose a connection right there. See the option? And you wanted to get the data source. There you go. Browse. And you will get, I have a data that's coming from Excel. So let me just look for my data. Oops, it's not in there. Let me get it from my 2013. 1 second, 2023, quarter one, Excel pivot table. original exercise. I have the attendance. That's a attendance. It's a database. Click OK and take a look. We were able to retrieve it. Okay, so select the table. So what do you do once you get this? Enable selection of multiple table. So you will be able to get a checkbox. If you want to get all of them, simply click on name and simply click OK. And then simply click OK. And give it a few seconds and there you go. You have the data up here. See that? You have all of them. And you could also be able to check, your connections. Okay, so you will be able to also be able to check if you have your relationship. You could, again, just like what we did earlier, you could actually do the relationship. Okay, so I hope this could actually show you. I wanted to do a little exercise before we end the class. Okay, so let me just close this. And I would like to open again. I will just simply use the same one that we had earlier. And this one, okay? And I wanted to review this before we end this class to just simply create a basic pivot table. And how do we clean this? Do I get any volunteer to just at least the first few steps? I could assign my, my mouse so that you could actually work in it. You could type your name in the chat or in the QA, and I could see your name who would like to try it. Anybody? Okay, I don't see anybody trying to put in their name. Otherwise, probably everybody got it already. Is the process very clear to all of you? Do you have any questions on how to build the pivot table? Do you want me to redo it again? Sure, I could do it again. Okay. So again, the first step that we did is to make sure that you clean up your data, right? So I'm going to resave this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just resave this once again, and I will call it my exercise. Okay. Pivot table. Okay. And there you go. And once you do it, okay, I am just going to basically, oh, thank you for volunteering to do it, uh, Kevin, but I'm just going to redo it for the sake of everybody. Just a little review. So again, so the first step I'm going to do is remove all the unnecessary information. So I selected the one on top, right click and delete. Make sure you check at the bottom, Control N brings you to the bottom. And you could see right here that you have some information in here that you don't need. So I delete. Then I go back to the top, Control Home to bring you back to the top. I don't see any filtering, so that's okay. But we need to know if we have some blank rows and columns. Again, to make sure that when it automatically select the range, it will not leave behind some of those information after any blank rows or columns. So to be able to do that, you go to Find and Select, you go to Special, and simply click on blanks. And when you click on OK, Excel will try to go to the first blank cell. There you go. If you look down at the bottom, I have my first blank cell. So I'm just going to see, and there's another one down at the bottom. So I'm just going to put NA. And then once I had put in NA, you see I had put in NA right there to populate the rest of the blank area so it will not become an empty cell or rows in data. Simply press Control Enter. The moment you do that, you notice all of those empty cells will now automatically be populated. So allow me to save this. More or less, I'm ready to create. Press Control Home And now I'm ready now to be able to build my pivot table. So I was able to clean it. I'm now ready to create a pivot table. So how do we create a pivot table? Once again, you click anywhere within your list. And then once you have click within the list, simply go to insert ribbon tab. And right there, you have the pivot table. Once I have the pivot table, it now, take a look, automatically select the entire range. It's a big range. And then where do you want the pivot table to be placed? On a new worksheet is the default. We'll accept the new worksheet, right? And simply click OK. There's your pivot table. It's an empty one. Here are your fields. Now, once you have done that, you are now ready to build your pivot table. So you build your pivot table based on the condition or the report that you would like to be able to see. So in this case, you have a list of all the employees who took the mandated training. And now you wanted to find out how many employees, right, from each business unit have completed the mandated training. So once again, using some information, so we said we are going to use the employee ID right there, okay, to the values. And then, of course, we have your pay business unit, and I'm going to put it in the rows. So now, what do you see right here? So this will give you, right, that each of the business unit part right there, you could see how many employees, right, have completed the mandated training per business unit. So instead of looking at this, now instead of me literally counting that, which is impossible, Pivot Table will be able to generate the report for you. So aside from that, if you wanted to be more details, every business unit have multiple department. So from which department have they really completed it? So you look for the department and drag it under the pay business unit, and it gives you the breakdown. Now, same thing again, if I wanted to expand collapse, if you go here, there's the expand and there's the collapse option. This is the report. Now, if you do not have time to generate that report, I have shown you from the original, you could also use the insert recommended pivot table. There you go. And it will give you different example of recommended pivot table. So you could actually select the table that you think you would like to use. So similar to what we have created, I could get the count per business unit. So I click OK. This is what we get generate. Is this not looking exactly of what we created in worksheet 1 and worksheet 2 are the same? So the original one we have created, this one is from what you call like the recommended pivot table. Okay, so I hope it actually had helped you. Let me go back to our PowerPoint presentation, and I am going to email this to you. I have also a list of references that we have given you so that you could actually be able to read more in details. And of course, at the end of this class, which is we are at the end of our session already, if I may ask you if you could help me and also our department be able to complete our survey for Excel pivot table. So if you have any feedback that you would like to put in, and you could actually use your phone and utilize your phone to be able to do the pivot table survey. Otherwise, I will also send this link, including the QR code, to your email address as soon as WebEx have generated the attendance for this class. Once I do that, I will also send you the copy of this presentation. And in the MTAU site, once the recording becomes ready, I will upload it in that site together with the presentation, just in case you would like to access it anytime, and the recording. So I'll give you a few minutes to take a look at this, and if you could actually do the survey if you have time today. Otherwise, do you have any question? Next week, I will have part two, where I could give you additional features that you could use in creating, once you created a pivot table. So we could actually be able to do more, like filtering and all of those options. Okay. And probably create what you call a pivot chart. Do we have access to the recording of? Yes, you will have an access to the recording, and you will actually get it as soon as it becomes available. I will notify you. Could you go through the relationship between the pivot tables again? Oh, sure, sure, sure. I could actually do that. So let me see. Let me see if I could get, let me, uh, it's the multiple tables, right? Here's the multiple tables, right? That's what I use in here. So I'm going to utilize the quick few minutes. So I will just convert this into a table, right? And click OK. Table 1, call it names. I have to do this because table 2, it's called attendance. And table 3, it's called, it's going to be called classes. Okay. Now we will create a pivot table. Let's play a simple insert pivot table, and you wanted this, but you would like to use the data model because you wanted to incorporate all of the tables together. So you use the data model to be able to analyze multiple tables. Click OK. So now you have all of the tables right here if you expand. But to be able to create the relationship, you have to look at the common fields. Take a look. So one of the common fields right here, I have for my attendance, I have employee ID. And attendance could actually build a relationship with the names table where I have employee ID. Also, we have class ID for classes, where we could also build the relationship with that, with the attendance table. So to do that, okay, we simply go to data and click on relationship. So we create a new relationship. So we said from attendance, from names, we'll get the names. You have employee ID, and we have employee ID going to be related with the attendance table, and you have employee ID. Okay. Next, we'll create a new one for using your class ID. So you have for your attendance, and we have the field class ID, and build a relationship with the table classes, where you also have a common field class ID. And that's how you build the relationship. All you have to do is click OK. So relationship is done. And just like what we did, we could now build our pivot table from it. Okay, so I hope I have shown you and answer your question about creating the relationship. Okay, so once again, let me just stop sharing, and let me now start my video to bid you goodbye, everybody. So thank you very much. We have another session done. Next week will be part 2. If you have not registered, feel free to register. If you have any question, feel free to send me an email, marites.macapagal@nyct.com. Otherwise, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye.